We would call the Rules Committee to order. This is our February 27th meeting. If you can, at this time, if you would stand. Father, hogi dola kohi sanale otata listi ostu sawa organikistote hitidotiotatlos. Father, be with us as we take on this meeting here. We address the needs of our Cherokee people. Guide and lead us in our decision making. Let our decisions be for the betterment of our people. Thank you, dear Lord, for everything. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Roll call, Shelley.
Joe Bird.
Ani.
Hannah Duncan.
Ani.
Keith Austin.
Here.
Harley Desert.
Here.
Julia Coates.
Here.
Sean Crittenden.
Here.
Joe Deere.
Aye.
Mike Dobbins.
Here.
Rex Jordan.
Here.
Daryl Legg.
Here.
Wes Snowfire.
Amen.
Dora Petskowski.
Here.
Mike Schimbach.
Here.
Mary Bakershaw.
Ani.
E.O. Smith.
Here.
Denise Taylor.
Here.
Victoria Vesquez.
Ani.
We have one.
Okay. The minutes you have before you at this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. Reports, our Marshal, Mr. Shannon Buell. I'd like to welcome all of our guests for being here today. See a lot of familiar faces, and just bear with us. We'll see if we can't get through this meeting here without too much dialogue.
Good afternoon. Besides the monthly reports, the only thing I want to add is we've been in negotiations with our EMS, our paramedic side of the house for Cherokee Nation, and one of the issues that we found at the Marshal Service is some of the stuff we go on is, one, pretty critical and pretty dangerous. And we've always had an EMT intermediate. His name is Danny Tanner. Most of you probably know him. But we've never had a paramedic that's been assigned to us to go out on these pretty bad situations. Some of the situations we're not even allowed to bring paramedics on because of the threat. So we've worked with health. We've now hired a paramedic. He's a paramedic first. He's been with EMS for many years. He's going to be going through the Reserve Academy. He's going to be a marshal, but first of all, he's going to be a paramedic. Once a month, we're going to allow him to go over and work on the truck for EMS to keep his, I don't want the first time he has to stick a needle in me is the first time he's done it in over a month. So he'll keep that up and keep that side of it. But what it allows to do is, one of those examples is the flood. We had teams down there for quite a long time, and EMS was having to kind of rotate paramedics to try to get them to us. So this will allow us to have a paramedic with our special operations team, with our dive team, and with our SAR team all the time. The men and women of the Marshal Service will get to know this paramedic and back and forth. And I think at the end of the day, the reason why we have special operations is we want to keep the community safe, we want to keep our officers safe, and also we want to keep the suspects safe that we're dealing with. And having a paramedic that can be in that house when that special operations is going on, I think is critical if something happens to any person at that scene. So the one that we picked, and so far he's fit well, his name is Mike Rogers. He's been here forever. I actually bring him today, so that's him in the back. He didn't know he was going to come in front of council, so he has the special operations clothes on. But we're excited about having him, so it's kind of a neat deal. The second is we've hired 3 people in emergency management to work on the HPP grant. It's a state sub-grant. What it is the Cherokee Nation, we've decided to take over coordinating hospitals in big-time emergency issues. So we've hired 3 people. We get federal grant funding for this, that if there's an outbreak of whatever, I'm not going to say corona, an outbreak of whatever, that these people will help coordinate the clinics and the hospital in our area. So it's really kind of a neat deal. We're excited about it. We've hired the coordinator, the planner, and the special projects officer to do that, and it's all on this federal grant that is renewed. So it's really a neat deal for us. So our emergency management is quite frankly on the forefront of all of this, and I'm very excited that they're doing it. and I appreciate your all's help. So other than that, if there's any questions.
Any questions for our marshal? Everybody satisfied?
All right, thank you very much.
Office of the Attorney General.
Good afternoon. Chrissy. We have had a lot, well, we have a lot going on, just not a lot of changes, I think, since last time we were here. Two things that I have to announce. The McGirt case at the Supreme Court, which that's the case that was the same issue as the Murphy case, but they took this one, presumably, so all 9 justices can hear it, has been set for oral argument on April 21st. And the other news in our gaming compact case, I'm sure you're all aware, it's all over the news, that the judge ordered mediation between the tribes in the state, and that is set to begin next month. So that's all the updates I have. I'll take any questions if you have them. Yes.
Do we have to mediate?
Yes. We have to put a good faith effort in. We filed the lawsuit. The judge ordered both parties to do that, so we are bound to meet in good faith and attempt mediation.
Thank you.
You good? Counselor Dobbins?
Well, the mediator, whatever he says, that's it?
No, so it's a good question. There's a difference between mediation and arbitration. Arbitration is the same as a court proceeding. When you agree to go to arbitration, whatever that arbitrator decides is a final binding order that can go to court for further review, but it's a new case. A mediator is informal. It is someone who is trying to convince both sides to come to an agreement themselves instead of having the court decide it. So he won't decide anything. The mediator will meet, usually how mediation goes, they meet with one side independently, they meet with the other side independently, then they get a day where both sides are there. He might go back and forth from room to room and then bring everybody in the room together to have a conversation, but it is someone, the goal is for the mediator to assist opposing parties to reach a settlement on their own. There won't be any final order that the mediator grants. If there is any agreement, it will be both sides agreeing in writing to something. That's how mediation typically works.
So that timetable right now is what?
It is set to begin in March, but it will be depending on when folks are available, how the conversations go. It's a little bit of a fluid timeline. That a mediator has been chosen that both sides agreed on, and it will go forward. And I say both sides. There's the states on one side, and then we have multiple tribes on the other side. And to reach a true agreement, everyone that is a plaintiff, all of the tribes would have to agree with whatever the proposed settlement was. So it's we got a couple of months ahead of us. The process of mediation itself is confidential, so neither the tribes or the state can come out and say, this is what we talked about today, this is what we did today, these are our next steps. The only way that we will know whether or not any type of agreement was reached during the mediation process would the judge would then sign some kind of final order saying that everybody agreed to this. So, but what happens in that room between parties won't be talked about publicly, and it also can't be used against the other side in a lawsuit. That's also a general rule of mediation, because you're trying to get people to agree on something. So if they say something in those meetings or concede something, they can't, and it doesn't work out and they end up going to court anyway, they can't use things that were said during mediation against the other side in a court proceeding.
Anybody else? Yes, Counselor Shamble.
I don't know if you can answer this. This may be a chief of staff question. What is the process, say a person asks for legal help through the Cherokee Nation, they're granted legal help through the Cherokee Nation, they're assigned a lawyer. Say it's a civil case, probate case. How is it determined how that lawyer, where that lawyer comes from? Is there a list of, it's kind of like a one right after the other, or is it?
No,
How is
I can
that?
answer this.
Okay.
And probate is the only area where tribal attorneys represent citizens, and that is because we contract through the BIA, Department of Interior, for funds to probate these estates in state court. And we only represent the estate so long as it's not contested. So if you get family members fighting over it, we get out of it. Everybody has to hire their own attorneys. We have an on-staff person, which is Linda Donaldson. We also are contracted with one outside attorney, and his name escapes me at the moment, but I can get that.
I know it.
Okay, I can't think of his name. But so we, I think internally deciding whether that case goes to the outside person we have contracted with or Linda is just a function of both physically where it's located as well as their current caseloads. But there's not a list. It's either Linda or the one contracted person we have.
Okay. Parks, I believe.
Yes. Michael, right?
I guess my question is, so those are the only two that does it. It doesn't matter where in our jurisdiction it happens. We don't have, I guess my whole deal is we're paying mileage to and from for them to travel.
Well, like Linda, she probably drives a GSA, our vehicle, most of the time. I mean, we're paying for it, but we don't cut a check for that. And on his, I don't think we pay mileage because I think I believe he gets a fee per case, but I don't know that for sure.
I sat through a probate case just the other day, so I was just wondering the process of that because, if they drive from Eufaula to Jay, that really didn't make sense to me. Why is somebody driving from Eufaula to Jay for a 5-minute court case when you're gonna, if you get paid mileage and then you get paid per case? I mean, that's kind of a waste of money if there's just somebody
will
closer,
say
even from Telequal.
On probates, the vast majority of the work is done outside of the courthouse,
Sure.
and all the filings and the hearing, unless it's contested, is always very quick and very short. But it is just and that is a recent, with outside counsel, that's a recent addition. In the past, Linda had always done all of those, but especially with the change to the Stigler Act, where more of them will remain restricted and we will probate those for those people, we're just seeing an uptick in those.
So if somebody needs counsel in a probate, who do they talk to get counsel?
They start with Ginger at the realty office because they do the front end work, make sure it's restricted land, work on the heirs. They kind of get a file together with information from the family, and then they send it to the AG's office.
Okay.
And actually, Linda is she's in the AG's office, but she's paid through Ginger's budget, and this outside counsel is through Ginger's budget because her department is who is contracted with the federal government to do those probates.
Okay.
She's
All right.
good.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, Councilor Nuffar.
Just a comment on that. How did we come up with Michael Parks as outside counsel?
I don't know.
Okay. How many attorneys do we have for the Attorney General's office now?
Total attorneys in the AG's office?
Yeah.
9.
We have 9 attorneys over there. Okay. Now, I know we have an attorney that's specifically for ICW cases too that we deal with, right?
We have a tribal court prosecutor.
Tribal court prosecutor. Okay, that was pick one. Why would I know on some recent cases we've because we have a legal health services too. We've brought them over to be a prosecutor on ICW cases as well.
We have, so Nikki Baker has transferred to tribal court prosecution. Elizabeth Odell has transferred back to, they're all AGs. Everyone's assistant attorney general at some level, and we do different work. Elizabeth is now working with health again. Nikki is doing prosecution. Our current, I guess maybe former tribal court prosecutor, Lena Vaughn, who's going to keep the criminal docket, she's actually going to work with Linda Vaughn to start doing probates as well. So just a shifting of, but everyone is still, we all report up to AG Hill. We're all in the AG's office. It's just assigning different work to different people.
Is there not, with the upticks, because the Stigler Act, is there not a reason why we shouldn't have some more dedication to that, such as the probate cases that we're having come on?
Maybe they would give us some more money. I mean, that's the thing with those specific are that they're funded through realty, and I don't know that there's I don't know whether or not there's been any increase in funding there.
Okay.
But we are like I said, we have an attorney in our office who is going to start working with Linda Donaldson. Linda's done this for
Forever.
I don't want to guess a number because I don't want to make her sound older than she is.
She's
but
good. She's good.
She's one of those people that she just has the institutional knowledge of Indian country probates and just having someone else start to learn that craft and get that from her. But Lena's going to work with her. She expressed an interest in doing that. So.
Well, I definitely like to know how we come up with this Michael Parks guy. I just want to make sure that I know you guys probably do your homework on why we chose him, but making sure we get the best possible person that can help our people out through those probate cases.
I do know that he has practiced in this area. He has done restricted land probates before. That's obviously a very, very specialized area, and he'd worked with some other tribes in the past and done some individual cases. So I do know that he had experience in that area.
Okay, all right, cool. I just thought maybe
I
he
don't
came
know.
out of nowhere, so
I think he's from McAllister.
McAllister's where he's from. Yeah. All right, appreciate it.
Or you follow?
Is he a tribal member?
I do not know the answer to that question. We'll find out.
Told me you would.
Okay.
Okay. Counselor Shambo?
Just real quick, so they're paid a flat rate per case, or do you know if they get mileage and then get paid for the time that they spend on the case? Do they bill? I mean, that's the
I
question.
think that they are paid a rate per case, but I don't know that for sure. I saw that contract, and
Could
I
you-
can follow up and let you know.
I would like to know that, if we're paying mileage and things like that, because that is a long ways to go for, if we could find somebody closer, it would save us a lot of money. The only other thing I have is, are you going to be around for just a little bit after?
I will.
Okay, I'd like to speak with you.
Anybody else for our AG? Counselor
One
Shaw?
question. What is the correct protocol when we have a relative at large that's wanting to take custody of a grandchild or something or other that has been removed from the family? What is the correct protocol?
They should reach out to ICW. And the problem is we cannot, we should be receiving notice of those cases, but we don't always, so especially if we have a relative and them contacting us to make sure that we've been notified of the case. We don't certify foster homes outside of the state of Oklahoma just because they're far away and we don't have employees there. But we can assist, so we can get them in contact with the right people at the state agency or even a private if they're looking to do a home study. And we intervene if it's a deprived case where the state has taken the child into foster care. We intervene in every one of those cases across the country. If it's a guardianship case, it depends on where it's at and the facts and everything else. But if it's a deprived case, we intervene. So we should, if we had received proper notice of it, already be involved in the case, but we don't always get notice. So they should reach out directly to ICW.
Thank you.
You good? Anybody else? I have one. Back to mediation. If neither party is satisfied with the mediation, does it just proceed back to court?
Yeah, if they don't reach an agreement on all issues, then the case will go forward and the judge will make a decision.
Okay. All right. Yes.
The mediator, Lane Phillips, is he familiar with tribal, between two sovereign governments?
Yes, and he like I said, both sides agreed on him. So he was someone that both sides felt had the knowledge and experience and temperament and lack of political connections and everything else that would go into making that decision. It's kind of amazing that we agreed on someone, but we did.
To you guys.
Yeah. Okay. Good report,
All right,
Chris.
thank you.
Appreciate you. Okay, Gwen Terrapin.
Good afternoon. It's good to see everyone. I apologize for my absence in last month's meeting. So far for the calendar year, we've only had 2 FOIA requests and no GRA requests. Everyone should have got a copy of my report, and our website's been updated.
Any questions for Gwen? Well, you're doing a good job. Thank you. Tax Commission, Sharon Swipson. Sharon's not here. We have Fonda.
Wanda Gritz, and Sharon sent her apologies for not being able to be here today. She said that you have her report, and if you have any questions, and I'll take them back to her. She'll be back with you.
Yes, Counselor Shaw.
Yes, in the report, it says here that the veteran sales tax exemption cards, that they were mailed out to 416, I guess, veteran sales tax exemption cards. How do you all identify the veterans?
Okay. get back with you.
Chief of Staff, do you want to chime in or you want
Oh,
to wait?
good, Todd knows.
Yeah, so it's my understanding that those that wish to use that benefit actually apply for that service. Obviously, we have quite a few additional veterans that register vehicles above and beyond that 400. And that's one of the things our Veterans Affairs group is trying to get connected with each of our veterans and try to reach out to them, let them know the other benefits and services that are out there as well.
Thank you.
They actually apply for that service directly.
Thank you, I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Yes. Anybody else? Good report.
All right.
Gaming Commission? Ms. Janice, proceed.
Thank you. And I would like to say thank you to Councilmember No Fire and Taylor for attending last month's meeting.
Good job, Councilmember.
And behaving yourself, she did not.
Yeah,
say-
I'm always on good behavior.
Wes?
Okay, any questions for Janice? Councilor No Fire.
Policies. We currently don't have the ability, our gaming commission, to write policies, do we?
We write internal policies. We also have to follow the Administrative Procedure Act to do policies because we are required under the NIGC to have policies.
Right. This is just kind of what I've had a few people ask me, and my knowledge too of what we can and can't do within our gaming commission as far as writing policies and regulatory policies. Can we write regulatory policies that ensure that there's only a maximum amount of, say for instance, board members, executives that can get bonus percentages for their employment?
That would be an operations question because that is not, we go by Cherokee Nation policies, the Gaming Commission.
Okay. So you can't overstep that and overstep the regulation policies
For operations,
for
no.
operations. Okay. Okay. All right. That's just a question I had. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Good question. Anybody else? Good report.
Thank you.
Human Resources?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am Alana Castile, and I have been placed in the interim HR Executive Director position due to Nason's resignation. You all have our report, and if you have any questions, I'll try to answer those.
Any questions for Councilor No Fire?
Is our HR policy over our housing authority, or do they have their own separate?
They have their own
Own
separate.
separate, and they don't report back and forth to each other? Okay. All right. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Anybody else?
Speaker first.
Yes, Councilor Coates.
Thank you. I recently made some changes in my benefits package, and I was surprised to learn that Cherokee Nation does not have a socially conscious investments package, and I just wanted to ask if you might look into that, into creating something like that. Would that be possible?
Sure.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have
I just didn't get her name.
Alana
Alana Castile?
Castile.
Thank you.
Alana's been in HR for a few years.
43 years,
43 years.
ever since HR existed.
Just now got moved up twice.
Nice to meet you.
Anybody else?
Do I have a number? My office number is 918-453-5243.
Good report, Alana.
Thank you.
Anything else, Todd?
Speaking from that, I'd just like to brag on Alana. I've worked with her for many years, and she is a hardworking, dedicated employee, and obviously the fact that she's been here for 43 years indicates that she started when she was 1. But she's been a great asset, and she's always striving to figure out how to get the right candidates in the right spot as quickly as possible. And I appreciate her taking the lead to help us out in the interim position.
Yes, Councilor
Have you ever been in the top spot?
Yes, back at the beginning of the Smith administration, I was, and I'm usually the director, and I love being the director. I support the ED in every way I can, but I'm up for this challenge. At
Are
least
you like
until-
an old coach that have you sit back and thought, I could fix that, I would do that different? I mean, you
Yes.
got ideas and
Yes, I
moving
do.
forward? Oh,
Yes.
well, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Good report.
Thank you.
Okay, old business, none pending, new business. This is a governing board member for the Cherokee Emerging School Board. Kanan, I want you to handle that one.
Okay, this is a resolution confirming the nomination of Clifton Pettit as a governing board member of June-Delacroix Cherokee Emerging School Board, and I put that in form of a motion.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Is Clifton Pettit here? A hand up, Cliff. Ja, nu just something. Cliff's been involved in a lot of our programs, and you know, so most of you have already met him, but well qualified. If you want to ask him some questions, it is a good time. If not, we'll just vote on it. Okay.
How many years you lived in Marble City?
All my life.
Oh, you life. Clifton operates the food pantry also.
That's right.
And feeds hundreds and hundreds of people. Does amazing things in Marble City. He's also going to have the Cherokee Day of Prayer, I think, April 4th and 5th.
It's April 24th and 25th.
24th and 25th. And we're going to have it up here in Tahlequah. So.
Here?
Yeah, the new.
Yeah, Cliff's been involved in that for many years, the Day of Prayer.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
Year.
Okay, anybody else? All right.
Can I ask a question?
You bet.
What am I getting involved with? all I've heard is get some paperwork handed in, and we want to vote you in, and I'd like to know, what am I getting into here? Kindly
Too late
We need to vote before
Cliff,
telling.
have you signed anything yet?
I have not signed it.
Be careful what you sign, because a lot of us were in the same boat as you. You know, we didn't know what we was getting into. We just signed. We ended up in Oklahoma. So be careful what you sign there.
Okay, thank you very much.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Easy. All right, let's move down to the next one. Counselor Coates, you're up.
Thank you. This is a resolution in support of Indigenous language rights specified in the National Congress of American Indians Resolution number ABQ-19-102. And I would move for its approval, and I would like to reserve the opportunity to comment first, Speaker Byrd, during the discussion, please.
Second.
A second.
Got a motion and a second. Okay, discussion? Okay, Counselor Coates.
Thank you. I wanted to just explain a little bit about this. This was brought to my attention by a constituent in Tucson, Arizona, who works for a non-governmental organization in that area around the rights of migrants coming to the border area. And he brought this to my attention. One thing I knew already, actually, was that we don't realize that a lot of the migrants who are coming from Central America in particular are actually Indigenous peoples. Their identities are sort of masked behind the state identity, saying that they are Guatemalan, they are Honduran, they are Salvadoran, but in fact they are often Mayan people from Indigenous communities speaking, literally a couple dozen different Mayan languages. Because of this, there are some issues that arise at the border. I want to make a couple of just parallels, because I think this is a situation that as Cherokee people we can really understand in a different way than many other Americans do. I think many of us realize that the populations from Central America in particular are fleeing violence from drug cartels in particular, but also for a long time political oppression from the state governments in that area. We are people who ourselves know about this kind of thing because we also were driven out of our towns because of violence and warfare in the 1700s. And we certainly understand the political oppression that led to our removal in the 1800s. We have some parallels in our own history with what these people are facing. And when they're identified as people from Guatemala or Honduras or El Salvador, there's sometimes a presumption that they speak Spanish. But because they are from indigenous communities, they frequently don't. They speak their own indigenous languages. And we also know something about that. We know about the difficulties of not being able to communicate, whether it's from children who were in boarding schools or in a myriad of other situations that we have experienced in our history as well. One of the staggering statistics, I know that we've all heard about the numbers of children who have died while in detention with the Border Patrol. To date, 7 children have died in Border Patrol custody. What we may not know is that 6 of those 7 children were indigenous children. And it is known that part of the difficulty in getting appropriate health care to them as quickly as necessary was because they were unable to communicate exactly what their symptoms were and what they were experiencing. There is a paragraph in this resolution that I want to call your attention to, and it's at the bottom of the first page. It's a whereas that says, given the current practices under the Department of Homeland Security, Health and Human Services, Department of Justice, Department of State, Border Patrol, et cetera, all of the agencies, as well as the Federal Immigration Court and the Federal Criminal Court, may be in violation of U.S. Executive Order 13166 that calls for language assessment and the use of primary languages. There are also some international standards under UNDRIP, the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, that are potentially being violated as well. I want to state that the resolution is one that has already been passed, or even a longer resolution than this, has already been passed by the National Congress of American Indians, and the Cherokee Nation, as a member of that body, voted in favor of that resolution. So this is really just reaffirming something that we have already voted in favor of. I want to bring it forward as a standalone resolution at the request of our tribal citizens who, and my constituent, mine and Mary's, who are in the Tucson area. They are hoping as a non-governmental organization that they and other non-governmental organizations in the region who work on these issues, who are concerned about the language issues, that they are seeing firsthand, that they will be able to use this for that specific purpose. I also want to recognize that this resolution is not taking a stand on immigration or immigration reform. What it is doing is calling to identify those people who are indigenous, who are coming to the border, and to communicate with them in their own languages, so that a couple of specific items, asylum requests and basic health and human needs, can be met. To date, the Border Patrol only has agents who speak Spanish. There are no agents who speak any of the indigenous languages, and this is just a critical need. Chief Hoskins very kindly met with the gentleman I've been speaking of in Tucson last November. He stated that he supports this resolution. Speaker Byrd and myself both got a very nice note from him this morning affirming that as well. So I want to give thanks to Chief Hoskin and the administration. I want to thank also our Director of Government Relations and our future delegate to Congress, Kim Teehee, who has also given her support to this. And I also want to thank Adam McCrary for authoring this. Although I am generously named as an author on it, it is primarily the work of Mr. McCready. So, so that's my introduction and explanation of this, and I thank you for your consideration.
You're welcome. Okay, you got a motion and a second? Yes, Councilor Crittenden?
Yeah, I just have a question. Right now, some of the indigenous folks are getting mistaken, Latino or Hispanic. Is that kind of where this kind of came from? And so supporting this may lead to having someone who is available who speaks some of the different languages of those folks. Is that kind of, in a nutshell, what that is wanting indigenous languages at least accessible when they have somebody there?
Right. Yes.
I wonder about how many languages that would entail. I mean, I'm just curious since we're talking about it.
Wow, I'd just be guessing. That'd probably numerous.
Ms. Coates, have you heard any numbers?
There are already a number of speakers of these indigenous languages who are in the United States, and so I think that we would not, that we should anticipate that this need could be fulfilled. These are sizable populations. I mean, millions, literally millions of people throughout Central America who are indigenous and speak indigenous languages, and we know that there's already been substantial immigration to the United States of people from indigenous communities. I would state that in northeastern Oklahoma, I've been aware of indigenous people in our communities here, even Mexican and Guatemalan indigenous peoples in particular. So I think we are anticipating this is not an unrealistic request.
Thank you, Speaker.
You good? Do you have comment?
I was just going to add that the UNDRIP's website, they have most of those languages identified. You know, those millions of people Councilor Coates talking about, they may consist of 2 or 3 different thousands of language groups. But the good thing is UNDRIP has already kind of done all the legwork on identifying those languages. And so, like she said, it's not an unrealistic task for them to have somebody there available.
Okay. Everybody good? Mm-hmm. Yes.
I would like to be added as a sponsor.
Okay.
I would as well, Shelley.
Shelley, me too.
Everybody good?
Mm-hmm. Everybody?
Yeah.
Do you have a comment?
No.
Okay. All right. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. Resolution number 20020. Councilor Deere, you want to take that?
Sure.
Councilor Byrd?
Yes.
We failed to vote.
We just voted.
Oh, we did? I'm sorry, the sound went out on mine. I did not hear it. I apologize.
That's good. It was unanimous.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Councilor Deere, you ready?
So?
Yeah.
All right. This is action.
Well, he did the census, but he don't bring his own tools.
Broken. Enact repealing Chapter 7, Section 61-64 of Title 19, Chapter 2, Sections 1101-1104, Title 21, Cherokee Nation Code. That's it. Okay, that's it.
Did you make a motion?
Oh, make a form motion.
Second.
That act is repealing Chapter 7, Section 61, 64 of Title 19 and Chapter 11, Sections 1101-1104 of Title 51 Cherokee Nation Code annotated.
I'd just like to be added as a sponsor.
Okay. All right. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, good job. All right. We're down to report only here. Update from the Election Law Reform Work Group. Councilor Mike Dobbins.
Thanks, Speaker. In September, this body saw the need to perhaps address our election code, and we established a work group of 8. I have the privilege of serving on this group. I might have the 8, maybe briefly raise your hand so everybody knows where the 8 are. And we've met 4 times, and each time our attorney took notes, not minutes, but took notes of the meetings. And after four meetings, we came up with these, you might say, a summary of what we talked about, bullet points, so to speak. And I think I forwarded an email to all of you with these bullet points, along with a note from me explaining that there were no votes taken. If there were no 0 to 8 votes for sure, or 8-0 votes. Just a lot of discussion, I think productive discussion. So I don't know what the chair would perhaps feel be the most productive way to address this, but before we do, I thought I might have our attorney come up and explain, in a sense, I've had a number of people, a number of counselors want clarity on what, when we use the word consensus, what that might mean at different points here. Kim?
Speaker.
Yes.
The purpose of the notes was just to keep the council informed. And my understanding and my use of the word consensus was just a general agreement, or really a lack of objection. So I think that was the thing that, as we've had these discussions, various council members have raised their concerns. And as I'm taking notes, I'm trying to keep things in general, but just the purpose of the discussion is to try to identify issues and topics that we believe that could easily be addressed in a maybe near unanimous, but without taking a vote. So I've actually received some feedback on some of the summary. Unfortunately, because of the inexact nature of not taking votes, some people may have had objections that maybe either they voiced and I didn't hear, or maybe they didn't realize that by not voicing them, I would assume that being a consensus. So I think that was kind of the use of the word consensus, is that, I mean, you know, there were certain things that everybody seemed to agree on, at least my perception, but maybe there wasn't. And I think that's also the purpose of this update, is to allow people to look at, you know, kind of what we've come up with and say, no, I do have a problem with that. And, you know, as we've gone along, I've tried to provide everybody notes, copies of the notes. If you haven't received them, I've got copies. I've been trying to hand them out before meetings. Sometimes I catch you, sometimes I don't, but they're always available to anybody on the council. So that way you guys know in general what we're discussing, and you can, you know, talk amongst yourselves about other issues if there's things that aren't being covered, or if you want to see it, if it can be covered at some point. I think that Councilor Dobbins is probably going to be the best point person to direct those questions or direct those issues to. So I think, does that kind of help answer? I think, you know, that was really, you know, we're trying to go through this and clean up as much of the election code as we can, and we would like to try to get the things that there is a consensus or more than a majority, is the way I've been describing this to most people, is that there's, you know, 2/3, if not 3/4 of the council are probably going to be on board with making these certain changes. So that way we can have one large amendment, and then as there's things that are more contested, have individual votes on those amendments to allow the bulk of the amendments to go ahead and progress. So,
Any further questions for Tim about just use of the word consensus? Does that clarify things?
Any comments or questions on the handout that you have received? Yes, Councilor Shaw?
Well, mine's not mine's just a comment here.
Sure.
You know, I have deep concerns here on number 4 here in section 3, number 4, about the notary requirement. Councilor Coates and I have constituents who have to pay a notary fee to vote, for their ballots out on the West Coast. And, you know, if you requested your absentee ballot to vote in the Super Tuesday primary, you will not need a notary to vote for the President of the United States. So I'm not sure why we need one for Cherokee Nation. I want to point that out. But again, I have to voice my deep concern that we are requiring a notary at this time, and especially when the at-large citizens are having to pay a fee to get to vote. And that is a deep concern that my constituents have shared with me, and I don't feel it's fair.
Councilor Shambaugh?
I guess I'll just have a comment on that. I think that you have to, these ballots have to be notarized. That is part of the process of keeping these ballots secret. When you do an absentee ballot and you vote, you seal that envelope yourself. Nobody gets to see what you do, but then it's notarized that yes, and that shows that you did seal it and nobody else did. I mean, and if we're talking election reform, that's why the state and even federal, and we may not have to on Super Tuesday, but when we get in the general and the primary, we do. I mean, you have to have those ballots notarized. I think it's very important that we stay with that to keep the integrity of that ballot. But we also, if we have to do things such as make notaries available for people, that's something that we may have to do. Or, you know, whenever you do bring a notary with you, I don't know if a Cherokee notary can only, is allowed to notarize X amount. I know that like a state election, it's only 20. A person can only do 20, one notary can do. I don't know if we have those same rules or not. I don't know. But, you know, those are some things that maybe need to be looked at too. But that's not what I had. But I guess I just got off on a tangent. But that's just my thoughts on that. I just think it would keep the validity of that absentee ballot out of question.
Okay.
More so. But what my question was to you is, have you shown this to anybody, the AG or anybody like that, or the Election Commission? Have they looked over this yet? I mean, I know it's early in the stages, but is that something, and if not, is that something that you're going to do?
If I may, yeah, the Election Commission has at least seen a copy of this, and we are going to invite them into our next work group meeting. They've actually provided their amendments to the election code.
Okay.
And we're reviewing those. We invited the AG's office for their input. We've yet to hear from them, even though we submitted the request in September. We've yet to hear from the AG's office. But the Election Commission has submitted, and we're going to be starting to review those at our next work group meeting.
And I think that's important, you know, that we at least give those two the opportunity to. That's fair.
Speaker.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Coates.
Thank you. I just, the conversation that we were beginning to enter into is discussion, and I think that this was to be a report and the questions about the report rather than entering into discussion of the specific things that might be on the report, because those things are going to come in front of the council at some point in the future anyway. So it seems like we backed off from that, and I think that's good, but just wanted to make that comment.
Yep.
We will discuss all of this at some point when there is some final product out of the work group, I'm sure. Thank you.
Absolutely. It'll come back to the council before we do anything. Yes, Tim?
Speaker, and I just wanted to address Councilor Baker's concerns. Councilor Coates has definitely brought up that issue, and it's been discussed. And that's, again, in the notes that I've got, you can kind of see the areas that have been discussed. But because there are objections, there hasn't been a consensus on that issue, and I went ahead and put it on here as an FYI, specifically for Councilor Coates, because I know this is something that she has brought up repeatedly. I know that this is also an important issue for you to know that it is being discussed, but right now, I think the purpose of the work group, or at least the current purpose of the work group, is to try to identify things that there are no objections to, or at least nobody's voiced serious objections to. So we're trying to identify those first, and then when we get to the issues where there are objections, we can still have votes on those things too, but maybe that comes second. so that way we can have that discussion and then decide, as a collective, what's going to be the best for the nation to move forward on that issue. So I think, does that make sense to you that, if everybody agrees, or at least nobody objects, because we aren't taking votes, it's just a matter of, it's a discussion. Does it seem to me that, as I'm taking notes, does it seem that everybody agrees, or at least that nobody has a problem with this? Okay, maybe this is something that we need to focus in on, because this is going to be significant legislation. From my perspective, whenever I start drafting legislation, do I want to go in here and make all these changes, to all this, that people are going to end up coming and saying, no, I don't like it because of this one thing. But we don't want to include that. We want to break out just the things that everybody can more or less agree upon. So I think that's kind of what we're trying to do with this first round. And then we're going to go back, because I think everybody here has something that they would want to change. But whether or not they can get a majority, that's where we have the discussion and we bring it to an individual vote on those individual issues.
Okay. At least you're headed in the right direction. And you've
I think
got
we
two
have made
entities.
progress.
Well, you got two entities sharing information, and you've got one that, we requested, so we'll see how that goes. Counselor Taylor.
So I would like to direct this to Mike. You're chairing this, right?
I guess that's
Or-
what I'm calling.
He's leading it,
Okay,
leading.
so I guess my question is, the things that those of us that are not on the committee that we do have concerns about, should we just direct that to you for the small group to hammer out, or how would it be best? Because I agree with Tim, if I sit back here and wait until I have the legislation in front of me to voice my concerns, that kind of eliminates some of the work of the small group, which is to kind of get it almost ready to vote before we bring it. So how would you, and maybe I'm the only one that has questions, but how would you have those of us that have questions or issues go about getting that to the small group?
Well, I'd welcome any input that's offered.
Okay.
And I'm sure that any of the 8 would too. Now, I don't know, is this the forum where we want to express some of our concerns? Or-
It's just a report for today,
Okay.
and I didn't cut anybody off from questions because, as we go along, it is a report, but I like Counselor Taylor's comment there. Where does the ones that were not on this work group, where do they submit? And we talked about this in the beginning, if you remember, the ones that wanted to be on this work group that did not get on this group. I said, everybody will have an opportunity to share their recommendations. And I just say you share with the work group and submit your recommendations.
Okay.
And is that
That's
okay
all
with
I got.
everybody? Okay? Because I want to make sure nobody was left out of what, if they have an opinion on some of the recommendations they might have. Counselor Critton.
As we go along, like Councilor Taylor, is there anything wrong with me getting with her and just saying, hey, let's alternate when you have a chance to come to this, or does that legally?
No, I think that's perfect. I think that's what Councilor No Fire and
Okay.
Councilor Buzzard have been doing, is that they've been taking turns that way. They're allowed to be part of the discussion and also see what the process is. I think that's one of the things that going into this, I think it was a little bit outside the box and trying to get everybody's arms around what we were actually doing. That's why specifically it's like, he's the leader. We're trying to keep it where it's not a body, it's a discussion. So there's no votes, everybody brings up their issues, this is what I think. And then, counselors, they all have their opportunity to say their piece,
So if anybody would like to do that, just contact me. Also, now we all came with, or I did anyway, everybody, I think, our bullet points and there just hadn't been a time yet in the meeting where we go, all right, Doctor, what's your bullet points of what your constituents are telling you? And I'd like to get to that point sometime. I know what we're trying to do, and also, would there be an email address for the most important people in these discussions, our constituents? I mean, I can take your email address.
All of us.
But,
All 17 of us have an email
I can take from my constituents, and I do, I promise you. but it might be a nice gesture because there are people interested. I was having a yard sale the other day. I made pretty good money at it, but had lots of discussion. What is going on in that deal? Here's my idea, and I do say send them to me. It might be a nice gesture to have a place that they can send all of those to, or if it's just ours, that we need to have a time then where we can, by golly, read off our bullet points without Joe Deere saying, "Hey, we need to move on." Because Harley, you got constituent list, don't you?
Hey, we need to move on.
I know what you're saying. but I want to get to that point, and anybody in that work group knows what I'm talking about. It's run by good people, but seems kind of rushed every now and then. Now, this whole process is really rushed. It's a good idea, but by golly, we're not going to get to the meat of it in our time frame. But what we're doing is a good effort. But I would propose focusing on one issue instead of covering the whole gamut. I just don't see that happening. But anyway, so I'll just take my constituents' feedback. But one day I want to have a bullet point day where we sit in there and say, here's what my folks are wanting. But I appreciate what you guys are doing. And there's good. I don't mean to be negative about it, but I want to be real about it.
Sure. Councilor Smith?
I had a talk about constituents. I had one last night that told me that an notary costs less than a cup of Starbucks. So, I would be with Mike on riding that horse to keep the notary, for sure.
Okay, we just making recommendations right now. We're not voting on anything. Councilor Noble.
I just had a quick question. Just the transparency of what we're doing. I keep telling my constituents that are asking about it, how's the work group, what's this? And I'm saying, it's something's coming. We have kind of a summary here. Is this something that we can publish on the summary aspect of it, what the work group, just so that way we're kind of, they see the work groups producing things are working, things are happening.
I don't have any objection to it. I mean,
okay.
These are just general discussions.
Right.
And I think, that
way they can see the process of how it's getting handled.
I think, as long as everybody understands that consensus is just general agreement, doesn't mean everybody's okay with it.
Right.
I think that some of the council members have made it clear that my recollection of the meeting was not theirs. This is by no means legislation.
Right.
This is just what's going to direct us at some point towards legislation.
Might be possible.
It hopefully will get us there. I mean, I have a feeling at the next meeting, we probably will talk about some people will voice their objections to certain things that I was under the impression there was a consensus, so.
Okay.
I want to commend the work group for I know we haven't solved all those problems. So you remember, we go back to Keeler days here, and we haven't solved those problems yet. We've had some pretty outstanding leadership here, so we've come a long ways with, just these recommendations here. And I know that doesn't solve it all, but I want to commend the work group for, having sat down and being where we are today. I mean, we've got some ways to go, but it's a good start. Better than where we have been in the past. Okay. Yes, Councilor Austin.
Yeah, I've been involved in this since day one, just like Sean has, and the conversations have been extraordinarily productive. It's a group of people with all different opinions who are coming together respectfully, working through, trying to find the common ground, trying to find the places where there's things that there's a mass agreement on. You don't get 100% agreement in a democracy, but where you get the movement is going the same direction, and it's been going since September. Every month we've been meeting. We've been putting a good amount of time into it. I'm proud to be part of this effort, and just want to commend all those who have worked so hard on it. It is an emotional issue for a lot of us. It is for all of us. We believe in the democratic process. We believe in protecting our the the vote is so valuable for our people, and these people are putting in the time, and I appreciate them.
Yeah. Yeah, Counselor Dodd.
Sean, I've had individuals call me, and I've asked them to just take your concerns to your counselor.
Okay.
That's what I've done. I don't know if there's a better way with individual constituents.
That
Someone
is the
from
way.
Junior's
Well, it's the
district
way-
calls me, I'm saying, why don't you call EO? Express your concern. Now, you mentioned something about a separate avenue to express concerns, but
Well, that's the way we do business every day. So that's all right.
have them all call Junior. But we're doing our best. I will note, though, that the Election Commission would like for us to really get close to wrapping up in August.
Okay.
Because of their calendar. You know,
Yeah.
6 months before an election, they can, candidates can start taking campaign contributions. So August, September at the latest. We've been meeting 2 hours on council day, so our next scheduled meeting, I believe, will be March 16th at 10 o'clock. And yeah, I would invite some of you if you want to come in and maybe swap with individual members to get face-to-face and share your concerns in that matter. I would certainly encourage that.
If you would, if you can, poll the people that have been coming, there's 8 of you. If there's someone that says, I can't be there, let us know.
Yeah.
And then we'll make our tag there.
I tell you, they've been dedicated, they've been coming.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Listen,
We ain't even have breakfast yet, either.
Really?
We haven't even served food.
Yeah, we're on a bad budget there. We're gonna have to make a budget mod.
No coffee?
Yeah. Anyway, Tim, keep driving this and make sure we meet those timelines, okay?
I can do that. And I want to acknowledge that she's been driving this and keeping everybody organized, letting people know when somebody's not going to be there. So, I would encourage you, if you guys do want to talk to each other and substitute, to talk to Shelley and let her know. She's been really good about talking to me. I'm there to make sure that we only have 8 and no more than 8.
Okay.
To make sure that everything stays, within compliance. So I think that's kind of the big issue. But otherwise, I mean, everything's been going really well. I think, Councilor Dobbins has really done a good job of leading us. I think, Councilor Crittenden has always got lots to add, and I think he's got some ideas. And I think that's one of the things that we will get to. I think everybody's, their bullet points eventually. I think, we just got to be patient. This is one step in a process that, like Speaker said, it's been going on for a long time. But I think this has been really productive. We just got to keep taking those steps. So.
Nobody said you've been putting the work in too, so we all appreciate that.
I'm supposed to be here though.
Just kidding.
Okay, good report, work group. Appreciate you. So, if not any questions, I need a motion. We'll wrap this meeting up. Motion. A motion and a second. Adios.